calling to order the May 17th public hearing first. So, Mr. Walker, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance first?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So at this, well, first of all, welcome to all of you here. We're appreciative of you showing up at this board meeting this very hot May day. So at this time, we will invite Mr. Chris Waka, who's already up there, to the podium to review the 2022-23 district budget. And if we will all recall, we had the preliminary draft for publication at the April 19th meeting. So this isn't new.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, and good afternoon, Madam Chair, governing board members, Madam President, Secretary, and all colleagues and any guests that may be present this afternoon. This is our annual adoption of the budget for the 22-23 budget year. As stated, you received a tentative budget at last month's board meeting. Since that time, it has been published as directed by statute in the local papers on April 21st. And what I am asking for as far as the action this afternoon is to approve this budget. There have been no changes since the presentation that was made at the April meeting. What I'd like to do is just highlight a couple of quick things to refresh your memories. You have included in your packet schedules A through C. Operating funds for the year, this year compared to next year's budget, is about a 4.4% increase. The plant fund is about a 37% increase, which we talked about as we're preparing for major construction projects in the district that'll start next fiscal year and beyond. Salaries and benefits increased overall at 2.1%, and our tax levy increased only by 3.4%, mainly due to the new construction in Pinal County. And if you recall, the tax levy is at about $58.4 million, which is still significantly below our allowable levy, which is at about $76.6 million. But we're nowhere near towards that allowable balance. Just quickly on the revenues and expenditures, it is a balanced budget that we are presenting. Total revenues match total expenditures at $97,937,781. And the only significance in the revenues is this is the first year that we'll have first year accounting of the Prop 207 dollars. If you recall, that's the Smart and Safe Act, Arizona Act. And also we will have an increase in the sales tax dollars. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions there may be on this budget.
Any questions from board members? If not, Mary Lou, this is a call to the public on the budget only. Mary Lou, do we have anyone signed in to speak? We do not. Okay, very good. So at this time, we'll go into the special meeting for adoption of the district budget. Do I have a motion to adopt the 2022-23 district budget?
So moved.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
Mary Lou, you can pick one. Okay, Jerry, all right. Discussion. All right, Mary Lou, if you do a roll call vote,
Yes.
please.
Gladys Christensen,
Yes.
Dr. Woody Horn,
Yes.
Jerry Walker,
Yes.
Dan Miller,
Yeah.
Evelyn Kasuga.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Terrific, thank you.
Thank you all.
Mr. Waka. So we will adjourn the public hearing. Thank you so much. All right, moving on. So we're now going to call to order the regular meeting. So the first item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. May I have a motion to approve this agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
All right, it's been moved in second. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously. All right, number 3 item is a call to the public. Mary Lou, do we have any? No. Okay, moving forward. Okay, so at this time, we have a lot of back and forth at this meeting. So at this time, the board will go into executive session and we'll resume the regular meeting of the board shortly. So may I have a motion to go into executive session?
So made.
All right, Jerry, Mr. Walker, Mr. Odiorn, Dr. Odiorn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, we're going to go into executive session. So if you would all excuse us, we're going to walk into another room. You can stay. You can stay this time. We're leaving. We're leaving. So you can hang out here. The next one, we're going to do it differently. Okay, may I have a motion to go to come back to our regular meeting of the board?
So moved.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, we are back. Thank you all for your patience. So the next item on the agenda is a consideration of consent agenda. So all of the following matters are part of the consent agenda and are to be approved by one motion. There will be no specific discussion of these items, and any item may be removed from the consent agenda by any governing board member. Are there any items that need to be removed?
I have one. I'd like to have some discussion about item F.
Is the sexual, yes, the policy, the Title IX sexual harassment. Great.
Title IX.
All right, so may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda with item F removed?
So moved.
All right, it's been moved and seconded simultaneously. Any discussion? All right, motion passes. Oh, let's see. Did I already ask for a motion? Yes. All right, and the motion passes. All right, so when, okay, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda then now as amended?
Yes, it was already.
It was made, okay. But I didn't take a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Aye. Okay. Motion carries. So the next item, so when do we discuss agenda item F? Where does that fall?
You can discuss it now.
Okay. So, Mr. Walker, you wanted to remove item F. Do you have a question that you'd like to present or discussion?
I have some concerns. I don't know that it's necessary for the college to be involved in policing this situation because it's already covered under Title IX at the federal level, and it's also covered under state statute. I don't see a need for us to do anything more than acknowledge that it's a violation of public law to engage in certain behaviors, and I don't see that the college needs to spend time and effort trying to be its own police force.
Mr. Walker, I agree with you 1,000%, and I appreciate your comment. Unfortunately, by law, we have to have this exact policy as one of our policies. Now, I'm not saying it makes a lot of sense, and you're absolutely right, it's a ton of work, and Laura is here today, who is our Title IX coordinator, and I'm sure she would agree with you as well, that there is things in there that are frustrating and a pressure point for the institution, but we legally have to have a policy like that with that language as one of our own policies. I'm not inclined to want to break the law and go against the federal government, but every institution in the nation has the same requirements. And maybe Laura or Jenny can share that more articulately than I did, but we're required to have it, and otherwise we can't hand out Title V funds, financial aid. Correct?
Correct. And it's very different than it has been in past years. So if you look at the change, 2020, just recently it changed and has become much more prescribed, much more specific as to what we have to include. We anticipate there may be changes in the next few years that we'll see to the policy, but it was extremely descriptive as to what needed to be included.
So we're saying that we have to do something because of recent legislative activity?
No, it has been something that has been a regulation for us. There's been a regulatory requirement for many years. It was just as of that time period is when it got to be this extensive, where we had to make changes, and it was as prescriptive as it is. So it's something that originally had changed in 2014. It had been in place years prior to that, and it's gradually gotten to the point where now it's as expansive and detailed as it is.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
given that explanation, I would move that we adopt the policy as written.
it's been moved and seconded to adopt the policy as presented from the last time. Any other discussion? Okay, I'm gonna, Dan, I don't know if you have any comments. If not, I will call all those in favor of adopting policy Title IX on sexual harassment. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, all those opposed? Passed. Mary Lou, thank you. All right, thank you for that conversation and the input. All right, now we have a great item on the agenda, and I think it goes to, lost my place. It is, it's Dr. Elliott's turn. Sorry.
Thank you. Good afternoon, governing board members, Madam President, faculty, and staff here with us this evening and our afternoon, and guests. It is my distinct honor and privilege to present to the board for their approval per CAC policy. Emeritus status can be awarded to any retiring full-time employee or member of the Board of Governors for distinguished service. As you know, Mr. Richard Gibson retired from the CAC Board of Governors at the conclusion of his final term of service in December of 2020. Mr. Gibson served 21 consecutive years on the board, with his first 6-year term beginning in January of 1997. Mr. Gibson served several terms as president and vice president of the board, and is distinguished by being the second longest serving member of the Board of Governors for Central Arizona College. I would like to recommend that the Board of Governors grant emeritus trustee status to Mr. Richard Gibson.
Before, I think there's an error on that. It was more than, I understand the information about his history came from Mr. Gibson, but he's getting old, so probably forgot. Said he served 21 years. I think he served 24 years, and which would make him the second longest.
All right.
Thank you for the correction.
Sure we correct that, thank you. So with that, is there a motion? Do I have a motion to bestow emeritus status to Mr. Richard Gibson? All right, Gladys made a motion, is there a second?
Second.
All right, Dr. Odiarn. So any discussion with the correction, except for the correction? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, all those opposed? Passed unanimously. So Dr. Gibson, please come on up here.
Might want to stand over there. I don't know. Somebody has their camera.
Picture?
We have a camera here.
Everyone has.
Everyone has a camera. Come up here, Rick. The commemorative plaque that we are bestowing to Mr. Gibson, and this is probably out of order for a board meeting, but was made by our welding students, and it's important to know that Mr. Gibson's father was very instrumental in helping build the skilled trades at Central Arizona College.
Well, I didn't come prepared to say very much, but I am deeply honored by this recognition. Some of the most wonderful events of my life took place as a member of the board at Central Arizona College. I learned a lot of things about myself and about life and about education. I learned a lot about working together with board members, colleagues, with faculty, staff, and administration. And I guess from the time of my board experience, I came away with a renewed understanding of the importance of education and the benefit that it can have in the lives of students and also their families and even the greater community. And I have a lot of appreciation for those who put their lives, dedicate their lives, put their lives in line with taking to the people, particularly of Pinal County, the opportunity of learning and growing and improving themselves. I want to thank the board for this wonderful honor. And I have just a spot where it's going to go in my office. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Great. Very good. Okay, we are at information items. So, college president, district update, and legislative update.
All right,
It was emotional.
you don't get to do a lot of fun things at board meetings, but when you're able to do that, that's pretty darn fun. So, a couple of updates for the district. Graduation obviously was a success. We had well over 200 students, I believe, participating in the ceremonies. It was beautiful weather, beautiful night. You couldn't ask for a better evening, and it was great to be back in person. It's also my honor to share with you that the Arizona Department of Education has approved our elementary post-baccalaureate Arizona Teacher Certification Program. The next step, however, is from a vote from Arizona State Board of Education and the Arizona Board of Regents. However, we're very optimistic that the work that Kara Steiner has done, Mary Kay and her teams will sail right through. So we're very excited about that. Earlier this month, I did meet with the president of Cuffridge Systems, which is an industrial HVAC installation company, to forge a new partnership for an HVAC program. I know they're very excited about it because they've been bothering Mary Lou about our second meeting. This partnership will look very much like the Wilson Electric program and complement the Wilson Electric program. And we're also working with Enel Energy to develop a potential program in electric vehicle technician. So those are exciting things that we're working on. On to the less exciting is the legislative update. I can answer any questions you may have and on those things, but I also would like the members of the Leadership Academy to please stand and introduce yourselves and your role at the college. This was a requirement of the Leadership Academy for them to attend, and they're here. So.
Good afternoon, Nicole Gonzalez, Director of Title V.
Good afternoon, Sabra Hamid, Professor of Biological Sciences.
Hello, I'm Laura Shepard. I'm the Title IX coordinator and also an academic advisor for the college. Hello, my name is April Kidd, and I'm the Upper
Thank you. So any questions on the district update before I move on to legislative?
Apparently not.
Okay. The first, and you've heard me talking about some of these for a while, is the House bill that would allow for CTEDs to offer associate degrees. This bill has been signed by the governor. So that obviously will create some challenges and perhaps opportunities for us as well. The House bills related to alternative service providers for adult basic education are still sitting in just past the House. And then the bill that prohibits colleges and universities from adopting and enforcing policy restricting a faculty member or student with a valid permit from carrying a concealed weapon on institutional property still is in committee, so we're hoping it just stays there. And then the bill that establishes the community college adult education workforce development program within the Department of Ed, which provides $3,000 per full-time student, is still just past the House and waiting for the next step. And that one, it would be instrumental in helping us with our adult basic ed programs. And then the bill that establishes a new formula for payment for community college district for students out of district has passed the Senate. So again, the legislature's not getting a lot of momentum on some of these. As you can see, the ones I've updated you on, the last several months, only one has been signed by the governor. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, seeing none. Very good. So the next item on the agenda is business affairs reports. Mr. Watka, you're back up.
Thank you, and good afternoon once again to everyone. 2 items this afternoon. First is the monthly budget report. If you recall at our April
Madam Chair?
meeting. Oh,
So, yes.
Very difficult to hear Mr. Walker. Can you possibly speak up?
sure thing. Is better? Okay.
Much better, thank you, sir.
Not a problem. So the first is the monthly budget report. If you recall, at the previous month's meeting, we did not have the February financials. So this month we have both the February and the March of 2022 information included in your report. So based on a March to March comparison, the district's operating funds expenditures are at 64.28% of the total budget, which is about a 3.4% increase from March of 2021, which was slightly over or almost at 61%. Second item is the amount of awards over 20,000, and there are a total of 5 of them for your information this month. Be happy to answer any questions on either of the 2 reports.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Watka? I think we're good.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, next is board outcome report, outcome 1, from Dr. Gilliland and Dr. Cardenas.
Good afternoon, President Kazuka, Dr. Elliott, colleagues, students, and guests. I don't know if Mr. Miller can hear me okay, or you good?
Dan, Mr. Miller, can you hear?
I can, thank you very much.
Okay, perfect. All right, so Dr. Gilliland and I are kind of going to go back and forth on this. We both have quite a few things, both from academics as well as from student services, that relate to student success, which is outcome 1, and specifically which are around ensuring equitable student success through retention, persistence, and completion. So the first is our retention information, and I do want to bring to everyone's attention that the time period that we're looking at, about halfway through that time period, as we know in March of that year, is when we had shifted and the pandemic had begun. So we're starting to see some of the data that was from during the time when we first started completely working virtually, and when our students had a shift, as well as employees and faculty had a shift in how we were doing things. So with regard to retention, for the year 2021, we did maintain the level that we were before, which was 71%, which is above the national level, but still slightly below the statewide level. We don't have that information for 2021, but I was happy to see that we, especially during that time with the pandemic included, were able to maintain the retention levels that we had previously. Looking at the second chart is looking at how we are ensuring success through completion and through our degree attainment. So the graduation rate actually had increased from 24% to 29% during that time period. And keeping in mind we're looking at a cohort of students that have multiple years to finish their degrees, we were definitely making significant progress. It was exciting to see that this number had started increasing. It certainly is not where we would like it to be, But has been a lot of, there's been tremendous work that's gone into the implementation of our degree progress audit, and still is work yet to be done, but we are seeing progress in that area, which is very promising. The hope will be, of course, that the pandemic and the numbers that we'll start to see in the next couple of years will continue to rise, even in light of what has occurred over the last couple of years.
Okay. So then the next one is about the credentials awarded per full-time student equivalent. And again, we have the same situation where we are looking at data that is just going into the start of the pandemic. Overall, we are holding fairly steady. We have gone up just a little bit, so again, moving in the right direction. And those numbers are very hard to budge. Those percentage points, each one of those percentage points is hard earned. I simply want to say that we have put a great deal of thoughtful effort into helping students achieve not just graduation, but to achieve credentials, including certificates, many of them with national certifications, which is another very important part of where we are going as a college. We want students to have those national certifications so that when they go out into the world, they are very employable. And then, of course, the associate's degrees. So all of those have increased a little bit. They are going in the right direction. We have this more challenging period of time that's going to be in the next bit of data. But we feel like we have good momentum, and we're really hopeful that we will recoup that. So we'll get back to it.
All right, so the next three areas that we'll go into. So 1.4 starts to look at things, and this is kind of where the shift has been from when we saw the monitoring reports of previous years, and now we're looking at things a little bit differently and focusing specifically on equity. We're really making sure that as we're determining the projects to take on, as we're determining all of the different changes that we're making at the college, that it's focusing and strategically looking at specific groups where we might need to see an increase that's proportionally greater for those areas. So the first is looking at the minority graduation rate. As Dr. Elliott had mentioned in the board retreat, which was several, I wanted to say weeks, but I think months ago. We discussed that some of these metrics are based on the Aspen metrics, and we're using those so that we do still continue to have a benchmark, and we're able to see how we're progressing in relation to other institutions as well. This is specifically around minority graduation. Unfortunately, we did see a 1% decrease in this area. However, the work is starting now. This is our baseline data in looking at it, specifically looking at this group. So we have started many different things. We'll go into that in just a couple minutes about the plan and the recent improvements that we've made that are specific to this. But I think the shift is, rather than just relying on having kind of a blanket net that we've sent out to assist students and absolutely best practices and ensuring that we're focused on what we're doing, this is looking specifically at the populations that we think might need the most assistance and providing equitable resources to them as well. So a little bit different way of looking at things than we have in the past.
And then the next one goes to the minority credentials per full-time student equivalent. And again, we have shifted down just a tiny bit as we were going into the pandemic. And we don't know if that was relative to the pandemic or relative to other variables, but it is a measure that, of course, we take to heart. And just to echo what Dr. Cardenas said, so much of our effort right now is going into making sure we apply an equity lens to everything, and to looking not just at standard best practices, but to make sure that we're really looking at additional practices and measures, and being mindful of wanting to really help all of our students, but in particular our underserved students who may need that extra hand up for equity purposes. I want to just add one more thing about these measures when we talk about graduation as opposed to credentials. And it may have been obvious to those of you who were at the graduation, but we do have some students who graduate with multiple credentials. In fact, it's not uncommon. So these are slightly different measures, but they are both good ways of measuring success.
And the last graph that we'll look at, again, this is a brand new one for us to look at in this way, and is the percentage of Pell recipients who are graduating, and the graduation rate for a Pell recipient. So one thing that we've noticed, and we've started to really dive into determining why, is the number of our Pell recipients has decreased overall in recent years. It's something that we would anticipate when we're offering free tuition. There may not be, in the eyes of the student, a reason for them to complete the FAFSA or potentially, use their Pell benefits because of free tuition. But we're starting to really dive into that and see why it is that the percentage overall has decreased, which obviously will add to a decrease in graduation rates as well. So that's something where there's a lot of work that's going on currently. So we'll kind of jump into the recent improvements and planned improvements. So recently, some of the things that we've been working on, we are very happy to have had, it's sad to say happy to have based on the pandemic, but the fact that we had to move to a virtual environment has forced us, we were forced to do it quickly. I feel as though we did it very well. I think our students were well served virtually. I think that we can agree that there is still a definite need to have a sense of belonging and connection to our students, and having that physical presence and being able to provide resources to them in many different ways. But it's nice to be able to know that we have both. They're well defined for our students, and we're able to provide those. We've talked a lot about enrollment centers at the other campuses. Signal Peak is right now going through a redesign of our M building. If you go to the M building, you won't be able to get in. There's nothing in it at this point. It is going through a redesign to create that enrollment center in that space to match what we have at SMC, at Maricopa, and at Santan. We've removed lots of financial barriers in the last couple of years, and I think the governing board is well aware, and we thank you for your support in offering free tuition and reducing the tuition dollars to $0 for our dual enrollment programs, and just many of the different things that we've been able to do over the years to reduce financial barriers. We had made changes to what used to be the Promise for the Future and is now the Now Promise, made changes to early college, and right when we did all of that, the pandemic hit. And we had additional funding through CARES, and we're able to offer free tuition. So even though those decisions were made over the last couple of years, this fall will really be the first time that we're able to implement the changes that we had made, and see the impact that it will have on our student population. So we're continuing to see huge enrollment growths in our dual enrollment programs and partnerships with the high schools. One of the other things that we're doing with the high schools currently is really working with them to focus on potentially making it a requirement, or definitely encouraging our high school students as they're graduating from high school to have completed the FAFSA. Whether it means that they're coming to CAC or going to another institution, it really is an important step for them to see the potential dollars that they have available to them, which can be an indicator of, college might be for me. I might be able to get assistance and be able to pay to go to school, in addition to the great scholarships that we have as well. We have, as I said, a renewed focus and new focus in some ways on our degree audit, in potentially being able to start auto-awarding certificates and degrees, where we're able to really look at the courses that students have taken and determine if they've earned degrees, to be able to do that kind of troubleshooting as to what they might need, and inform students early on that they're close to graduation, or reach out in a proactive manner to help them to earn that. So there are lots of different things. I'm going to stop there. I know Mary Kay has items as well.
All right, and yes, many of this is really just two sides of the same coin. A lot of these efforts are approached maybe just a little bit differently with different processes on the academic and student services side, but I think we've been really all working very much in close contact. It's maybe perhaps odd, but as one of the benefits of the pandemic, it seems that we've actually talked more, even if it's sometimes been virtually. So just a few things in the list of the recent improvements. Rather than going through them, I want to just simply say that we have a number of key initiatives going on, but embedded in some of those initiatives that you've heard a lot about already from some of our wonderful presenters, our guided pathways and our Caring Campus initiatives. And you haven't heard much about open educational resources, but I think you will going forward, but that's one that's also very important. We have some funding. We had funding under CARES, and actually Dr. Elliott really was instrumental in pushing us to look hard at adopting free textbooks. And these are not just free, not good textbooks. These are peer-reviewed, quality textbooks that students can get for free. Most of them are digital, but there's often a low-cost hard copy as well. So we were able to leverage CARES funding to begin to really build out the materials we need for courses to adopt some of those, because most of them don't come with any support materials. And we made a lot of progress, and we are now involved in a grant, a consortium grant
with all of the rural colleges in Arizona under the Department of Education to continue that open educational resource effort over the next 3 years. So what this does is it makes textbooks very affordable for students. There's nothing better than free, right? So that people will be able to get their textbooks first day. There's no reason to not have them, and they can, perhaps be more successful. We hope they will be more successful by being able to dive into that right away and not waiting for a Pell distribution or putting it off for that paycheck to buy their books. Those books can be very daunting in cost, so this is a really huge initiative. But some of the other, few of the other things that I want to highlight that are sort of embedded in some of the things like Guided Pathways and the Caring Campus are things that might seem simple, but they really make a big difference for our students. So for example, we have brought online a new syllabus template so that the syllabus, the course materials presented to students will look the same in most courses, which means that students aren't learning how each faculty member is setting up their course. It's kind of a huge deal. If you can go in and in my biology class, things are set up the same as in my English class or the same as in my welding class, that is kind of amazing. You'll know where to find professor information, you know where to find all of the things that you need. So navigating that is, we're hoping to ease some of those barriers. Just one more thing I'll highlight, and you've heard a little bit about this already as well, but along with the Guided Pathways and Achieving the Dream and other initiatives, we have moved away, and actually partly a product of the pandemic because things forced us to change quickly. We used to have all students come in and do placement testing when they came to the college, which was really a daunting process, probably a very inequitable way of placing students into their classes. Really scary for students, and often they would have no preparation that they were going to come in and do this. And we have slowly moved to multiple measures and now a self-guided placement tool where students can work on their own, assess themselves based on their experience, and then take that information if they need to and work with an advisor to find the appropriate placement. But not the scary process that we have, and we're finding many more of our students are starting at college level and not at a pre-college level. In fact, those courses are also now streamlined and kind of disappearing. And so these are very important improvements that we believe will help remove the barriers. And then one more thing I wanted to add, which it's kind of embedded in some of this as well, which is the work that we're doing with Caring Campus and some of the other things that I don't believe has been mentioned. But that even with our online classes, because of course we really went fully online or virtual during the pandemic, and we are finding students are still choosing those courses to a large extent, although we are seeing more enrollment in face-to-face coming back for the fall. But our faculty have done amazing things in making these online or virtual options more dynamic. So one possibility, one thing that faculty are doing is that even if things are virtual, it is in kind of live streamed. It's in real time, so you get that face contact, and it does allow us to offer classes around the district that might not have been able to, quote, go because we would only have a couple of students at one or the other campuses that are smaller. But this way, with the synchronous offerings, people can get the benefit of both some real live contact, even though it's still a lot of computer screen, but it's live, it's in real time, and we are able to offer more classes. And then another piece, and I actually just to make sure I was clear about this, I took a tour this morning of one of our professors' online, purely online classes, and we're talking about the ones that are static, that don't have any live streaming. But many of our professors are beginning to create more videos, and this particular individual, this is Professor Tatterson, who teaches a digital media art class, and so of course she's good at the digital, but she took me on a tour of one of her classes, and she has created videos for both a welcome, she created a video guide to how to navigate Blackboard, she creates videos for each of the chapters and also each of the assignments to help guide students through them, and then has extended office hours as well, so that when students need help. So the office hours go beyond what the college requires, and she has decided to add more because she feels that what students need. So I just wanted to share that our faculty are doing really good things to try to reach out and help students as well, and especially to break down these barriers. So I will stop with that.
Okay, so we'll go into the planned improvements, and I do just want to share, I'll do similar to what Dr. Gilliland did, just in mentioning some of the things that we have coming up. I think what we've seen recently is we've had a shift where our enrollment has increased significantly for the fall and for the summer, and we're seeing great numbers when it comes to enrollment. So our focus is now shifting to how do we retain these students? How do we help them to reach completion? So a lot of the different things that we have going on are connected to Title V, the work with Derek and Nicole in redesigning our advising for students so that they have a single point of contact for their advising and career needs, ensuring low tuition is maintained, whether it be through scholarships or as we adopt tuition amounts for the future. Really targeting outreach, again, not just casting the net and seeing kind of what we pull in, but targeting specific areas where we know we need to provide more resources or bring in more students. Redesigning our onboarding process. So what are the things that every student has to know, not maybe should know, but has to know before day one of classes? And how do we ensure that every student is able to achieve those things and able to be successful in order to be successful? We've done a lot with developing REACH, which is an anthology project related to customer relations module. So how we would connect with students once they identify that they're going to be coming to CAC and what their interests are in. So lots of different things that we're currently working on. I'm sure that I've missed a ton of them, but it's really an exciting time, both that we're starting to see students. Graduation was a great evening for so many people, and part of it was the fact that we had so many people on campus. We had students back on campus. As I've said before, we know that our students who have been successful in the past, regardless of age, regardless of them being first-generation college students or not, or our low-income students or not, the one thing that is the common factor among our successful students is that they've connected with someone. They've connected with a program, with a club, with a person, whether it be in our cafeteria or just as an interesting side, and I promise I'll be done. We had nominations for Faculty of the Year, and one student wanted to nominate someone who is a cafeteria staff member and said, I know this isn't a faculty member, but I didn't know how else to let you know that every time I go in, they say hello and they ask me how I am. And I think it's important for our staff to realize that even if you think you might not be in a student-facing position, or you think you might not impact graduation or retention, just by being present and being someone that a student can connect to, that might be the deciding factor in them deciding to stay at CAC and complete. So I will end there.
And I will just add a little bit more, because in our planned improvements, we are largely, in many cases, continuing with our larger initiatives. They are not once and done, they are ongoing, and we make additional improvements at each step of the way. So for example, with the open educational resources, we have a very good start, but we are really aiming to be, I was talking to Dr. Ellen, I think our goal right now is to try to be at 75% OER. So it's going to take us a little while to get there. It's a daunting goal, but I think we can get there eventually. When we speak about the guided pathways, and Nicole Costales last summer was working on a project that we were sort of fondly labeling Guided Pathways 2.0. I think we're starting into the Guided Pathways 3.0 for CAC coming up in this next round. It's an ongoing process of refining and improving the way we present things, and particularly as we assess our data and get feedback about student experience. So those are the primary things I wanted to just highlight, that we are continuing all of these efforts, and we are not just, doing the same thing, we're doing more. Finally, we are working on a new Title V grant, so wish the college luck in this. But that grant will also focus on equity issues, on culturally responsive teaching and services, and high impact practices, as well as some general education redesigns for the 21st century. So pretty exciting stuff, and we're just very hopeful. So thank you very much, and I think at this point, if you have any questions for either of us.
Yeah, any question? It's fabulous. What great news to share with all of us, because these are, in and of themselves, they're impactful, but collectively, it's even more so. So we're very excited what you have all done for the college, and it's going to show, and it's showing now. So thank you for that. Any other questions from board members or comments? Many of you have been here for a while and heard the transition over all this time, so it's all good news. Thank you. All right. Excellent. All right. right, now we are actually going into executive session, but now we have to kick you all out. So that's, so may I first have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
And do I have a second? All right, is there, it's been moved and second to go into executive session. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Aye. All right, well, I think he was saying aye to the first part of that question. All right, motion carries, and if you can come back, because we do have like maybe one other item, but if not, thank you all for being here. If you choose to go back to your day jobs. All right, thank you all. You're ready? Okay, so now I need a motion to return to regular meeting of the board.
So maybe.
All right, Jerry and Gladys, that's the second. All those in favor of moving into the regular board meeting, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, all those opposed, all right, we are back in the regular session, and we are actually going to skip item 11, so at this point, unless anybody has anything else to add, meeting is adjourned.